Hello everybody, welcome to Nick's Snack for Neologisms, where we define and discuss the most amazing words in the English language. Last episode we covered meretricious, equivocate, augury, and in episode 6, this episode we're covering bellicose, nettle, and surly. So let's move on to our first word. Our first word is bellicose. It is spelled B-E-L-L-I-C-O-S-E. That's B-E-L-L-I-C-O-S-E, bellicose. And it's defined as inclined or eager to fight, aggressively hostile, belligerent, pugnacious. It's a good word, bellicose. And you'll notice that it has that B-E-L-L in it, which is in the word belligerent. You guys are probably familiar with the word belligerent. It's often used in association with some sort of raging alcoholic, right? Someone who's a raging alcoholic is usually belligerent. And belligerent has that B-E-L-L in it, which refers to war, something that pertains to war. So does the word bellicose. Another word that comes to my mind is antebellum, which means something that comes before a war. So whenever you see the B-E-L-L, just think it has to do with war or fighting or something of that nature, right? So another way we can remember this, right, is let's pretend that we all live inside a giant castle and one of us sees that there's an invading army coming towards our castle. We might ring a giant bell, B-E-L-L, to alert everyone of some sort of impending war. I guess that might work out. I don't know. So yeah, that's bellicose, inclined or eager to fight. If you guys have ever watched like an MMA fight or UFC or something like that, when the fighters are walking down towards the ring, they have a very bellicose nature to them. They have a very bellicose walk, right? Like their chests are puffed up. Sometimes they're clenching their fists. They just kind of got a little swagger to their walk. They're like, yeah, we're ready to go, we're ready to fight. That's definitely bellicosity at its best right there. So that's the word bellicose. Let's see how it is used in a sentence that I found online, or some sentences that I found online. The current dispute regarding Delaware banks and New Jersey politicians has excited bellicose passions. The next example goes, she looks so traditionally feminine that her foul mouth and bellicose nature are amusing surprises. And the next example goes, throughout our talk, I could not escape the impression that at least some of his more bellicose threats were mere acting. And the last example goes, Lee said that the bellicose rhetoric from North Korea could be boxing in North Korea's 28-year-old leader, Kim Jong-un, and that if he doesn't act, he could lose face. So that is the word bellicose, 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 and it means inclined or eager to fight, aggressively hostile, belligerent, or pugnacious. Okay, let's move on to our next word, which is nettle. It is spelled N-E-T-T-L-E. That's N-E-T-T-L-E, nettle, and it means to irritate, annoy, or provoke. So something interesting I didn't know about this word when I was doing a little research about it is that there's actually a plant, and its name is nettle. So there's a nettle plant, and if you look at the plant very closely, you'll see that there's these very sharp, fine needles on it. So if you touch the plant, you get like this weird rash on it. And of course, if you look up videos, there's a bunch of guys trying to pay each other to touch the plant and prick each other for $5 or something on YouTube. And one guy just barely touches it, and you can see that it sort of gives him this like stinging sensation. So if you can remember that there's such thing as a nettle plant and that it's got these pointy things, then you will remember that, oh, okay, if I were to ever touch that plant, I myself would be nettled. I would be irritated, annoyed, or provoked. Another way that you can remember this word is that it has the word net in it, right? When I was a kid, I used to catch all sorts of different bugs and insects and animals in a net. And I remember that every time I caught something in a net, it was nettled. It did not like being there. It was irritated, annoyed, or provoked, or all three. So the next time you're irritated, if you want to sound cool, don't just say you're irritated, say that you feel nettled, all right? That's the word nettle. And then here are some examples I found online of the word nettle or nettling being used in a sentence. The nettling bystander grasped his ears, wondering where the loud noise was coming from. And then the next example goes, when you asked him about his long-standing debt, did he at all seem nettled? And the last example goes, if you touch the prickly spines of a nettle plant, you not only yourself will be nettled, but you'll also receive a nice red rash. So that is the word nettle, and it means to irritate, annoy, or provoke. All right, let's move on to the last word. The last word is surly. It is spelled S-U-R-L-Y. It's not to be confused with Shirley. It is surly, S-U-R-L-Y, and it means rude or bad-tempered or unfriendly. So surely you aren't surly, are you? And I found that over the years, one of the quickest ways that I myself can become surly is by not getting enough sleep. If I don't get my 8 hours, I'm quite the surly person. So the way that you can remember this word, I don't really have that good of mnemonics for it, but surly, since it's spelled S-U-R-L-Y, if you were to throw a O before the U, you would have sourly or sour, right? So sourly or surly. And something that's sour, if you taste something that's sour, it's likely to make you sort of bad-tempered or just unfriendly, right? So something that's surly is something that's bad-tempered or unfriendly. That's one way to remember it. It's kind of a stretch there, I know. Another way that I came up is you can think of surly as sir, leave us alone. You're being rude. Sir, leave us alone. You're being rude. So hopefully that might help you associate surly with someone being rude. I don't know. Maybe not. Okay. Anyhow, here are some online examples I found of the word surly being used in a sentence. Remember that surly means rude or bad-tempered or unfriendly. Okay. We trailed them to the other side, but another surly elephant drove us off and sent the entire pride into hiding. The next example goes, nevertheless, they tease and worry, poke and tickle the animal continually so that he is surly and snappish. And the next example goes, the early euphoria could rapidly fizzle into surly disappointment. And lastly, he loved military training. In fact, he even thinks fondly of the surly drill instructors who shouted in his face. That's a good example. So that's surly, S-U-R-L-Y, rude or bad-tempered or unfriendly. All right, so let's see if we can recall the definitions of the words in this podcast. They were bellicose, nettle, and surly. Can you remember the word bellicose? As in, the bellicose man strolled through the aisle with his puffed up chest and clenched fist. Good. It means eager to fight, aggressively hostile, belligerent, bellicose person, right? All right. Can you recall the definition of the word nettle? As in, the seat I sat on was very nettling, it had no backrest, and was a bit wobbly. Good. Nettle means to irritate, annoy, or provoke. And lastly, can you remember the definition of the word surly? As in, the members of the elite cult were not surly at all. They even invited us in and gave us coffee. Good. It means rude or bad-tempered or unfriendly. So those are our words. Bellicose, nettle, and surly. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I want to give a shout out to TX Lucky One for giving me my first review on iTunes. Thanks, TX Lucky One. I appreciate it. And stay tuned for episode 7. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.